process, incremental process. It's a moonshot and it's hit pay dirt. And it allows us to literally determine the pathology while the patient's on the table.
Wow.
So it, in a sense, prevents follow-up surgery. So I don't want to steal their thunder. This is the impresario of this.
I don't know if I would say that. Mr. President, good to see you again. Yeah.
Hi, Jill.
Dr. Biden, good
Hi,
to see you
nice
again.
to see you.
Yes.
Hi, Jill
Nice to
Biden.
meet you.
Hi, nice to see you.
Jill's husband.
Jack's turn. Hi,
So I think,
Jackie. I'm Jill. I guess we'll come back.
So you guys can be just right in the middle here.
Right here in the
Yeah,
middle.
you can be right in the middle. So you guys can be right in the middle, right in the, that's seat now.
Okay.
So again, thank you both for coming down. We really appreciate you choosing New Orleans to be the place where you announce this really great program. I want to thank Dr. Wagersen for being here, and Dr. Alan Hanku, who is the PSI program manager. We're really excited to be a part of this. And I also want to congratulate the other teams around the country who are part of this initiative. So the PSI program is really about what if, the question they ask is, what if surgeries worked flawlessly every time? Right? And so, as you know, when you have a cancer diagnosis and cancer surgery is one of the first things that the doctor wants to do, one of the things the patient's worried about is, will the surgeon be able to remove all of the tumor?
Sure.
Right? And so the way that happens now, so I like to use the analogy of like an orange. So the idea is to remove the entire tumor with a normal rim of normal tissue around it. So if you think about an orange, so the orange pulp is the tumor and the orange rind is the margin. You don't want any orange pulp poking through the outside. So that means that there's cancer cells on the edge. There's cancer cells on the edge of the thing that was removed. There's cancer inside the patient. So how do they test that now? So now, there's a few things they can do in the operating room, but they basically have to guess. So maybe you have a tumor, I was just 3D printed it. You pick a spot, say, oh, I'm worried about it here, and you send it. But if you got the wrong spot, then you don't know. So what they do is they send this to a lab, they fix it in formaldehyde, they cut it into slices, they'll put that into a wax block. Each of those slices gets sliced on a fancy deli slicer called a microtome, and you end up with a microscope set. And so for a single tumor, a pathologist will, on a microscope just like the one behind us, they look at 50 to 100 of these to determine, is there any tumor on the outside of the patient. So that takes days to a week, and clearly that's too long to change the surgery in the time. So we want to give the surgeon tools so that they know, while the patient's on the table, is there any remaining cancer and where is it?
So you do back and over again.
Yes, we don't want to come back for another surgery. We don't want their cancer to come back. And Dr. Turner is going to talk later about even some patients can't have another surgery. Right? So it's really important to get it right the first time. So we just need better tools. And so the project that we're working on is called Magic Scan, and it's built on some work we've been doing for a number of years now. And so actually we're going to do a live demonstration here. So we actually have some steak. We don't have a tumor. We have some meat. And so the way that we do this is instead of physically cutting it, we optically cut it. We use the light to give us a microscopic image of the surface. And the way we do that is just, it's a little funny here, but we just dip it in this tissue in dyes, and then we dry it off, and then we put it on the scanner. And so my PhD student, Ivan Bozic, is going to show you how this works.
So, sir, when we have a sample on the scanner, we can press the run in a software, and the microscope will start scanning and acquiring images of the steak surface. And as you can see on the video, it's automatically stitching in a panorama like on your phone, and this is how steak look under fluorescence microscope. However, not every fluorescence microscope. So in a normal one, it will be a blurry image. But what the Spence is saying, we are doing optical sectioning and acquiring only a thin layer of the surface. So furthermore, after we collected the image, we actually can open it in Viewer, and as in Google Map, we can zoom in on different areas. So, for example, each this line is actually one of the meat fiber, muscle fiber, and blue dots are actually nucleus. And here we see adipose tissue on the steak.
You see what you see?
Adipose tissue, fat tissue on the steak.
Yeah. So we've not only imaged meat, obviously, but we've imaged human tissue as well. And so if we could go to the next slide. So this is an example of skin. And so on the left, we have normal skin. And so that zoom is showing actually a hair follicle. That's what that kind of long thing is, with the hair growing in that. And then the things beside it are like glands, like sebaceous glands. And then on the right, we have an example of tumor. And so this is a patient that had a basal cell carcinoma. This was actually taken at a clinic in DC. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Brian Suma, who's a professor of computer science at Tulane. He's going to talk about how we're going to go from here, right? So how are we going to speed this up? What are we going to do about the data? He's going to talk about that.
Thank you. So this skin example is about 1 or 2 square centimeters. And the machine right now can scan that in a couple of minutes, which is fast enough for a surgeon to know whether or not there's cancer and to make a decision. But things get more difficult as we get to other types of cancer. So here's that same skin example, but now we have one side of the prostate. Right? So this side right here is about 12 times bigger than, because it's bigger, it takes about 12 to 15 minutes for the scanner to be able to scan it. So right there, we're almost at the cusp of how being too long for a patient to be under waiting for a decision. And unfortunately, the cancer can occur on any side of the prostate. So here's an example of an image that we've scanned every side of the prostate. This is about 40 times bigger than our skin example, okay, and it would take 45 minutes with the current technology to be able to scan it. Now, because of this program, because of the moonshot, what we're going to build is a device that will scan areas that are 600 times bigger than our skin example and do it in less than 10 minutes, meaning that it will be able to scan the entire surface of a tumor in time enough to make a decision for a patient that's still under anesthesia. Okay, so this device we're going to build will produce a massive amount of data. That's where the computational team that I'm part of will come in. Right, so this will produce about 1 trillion pixels per patient. And there's no way a human could look at 1 trillion pixels in 10 minutes and be able to make a decision and to see if there are cancer cells there or not. So what we'll do is we'll rely on sort of advanced techniques and artificial intelligence and machine learning to scan the images as they come off of the device and automatically detect when a cancer cell appears. Right? The model will be accurate such that the surgeon will be confident that they removed all the tumor, but also will not give false positives and make the surgeon remove healthy tissue. We'll also design a machine that will do this that will work in a rural setting. It's very important for us to have that. So we're not going to rely on some high-performance infrastructure to do the computation. We're not going to have to be able to upload it to the cloud to do computation because it's going to be about 2 to 3 terabytes. So we'll have a single box that will do all of this in one go.
So is this box in the operating room?
So yes. So it either be in the operating room or maybe nearby.
Right.
So like maybe a central room where they could bring the specimen.
And so this is a mobile unit as well, right?
Yes,
To take
that's
to
the idea. Yes, you could have it on a cart, roll it into the OR. Yes.
So we could detect cancer using the machine learning approaches, but the surgeon only really cares about where on the tumor the cancer cells are. Okay? So while we're actually doing the high-resolution microscopy, we'll scan the tumor with a 3D scanner to produce a 3D model, and we'll be able to map where the cancer cells are directly on this model so they could relate to where in the patient they have to remove more tissue. So this project is a collaboration with several research universities, medical centers, and industry partners. It's only possible through your leadership and support. When we build the device, I hope you will come back and see the device in action. So we have a great team. I would say pretty much the dream team to handle this kind of device. One of our team members, Dr. Jacqueline Turner, who is a professor of surgery at Tulane Medical School, will talk about how such a device would actually affect your practice.
So, yes, welcome. Thank you for having us. As a colorectal surgeon, this is something that we deal with constantly every time we go to the operating room. I think Dr. Brown chose colon and rectal surgery to be involved because colon cancer is the 3rd most common cancer worldwide. It accounts for 10% of all cancer cases. Unfortunately, in Louisiana, we have one of the highest prevalences of colon and rectal cancer. We are the 6th leading states in cancer deaths. So we definitely take this home. Cancer recurrence is one of the reasons that we have a high recurrence rate, a high death rate. Cancer recurrence occurs from anywhere between 7 and 42%, depending on the stage, and surveying the patients during that 5 years after treatment. So there are things that affect cancer recurrence, such as margins, as we've talked about, the distal margin and the radial margin, the margin around the tumor, all that affects their survival. So when the patient is in your office and we're surveying them for these 5 years, the thing that they're most concerned about is my cancer coming back. And that's the dreaded thing that we have to tell them, as a physician. Also, we have the pressure, as Dr. Brown mentioned, of getting it right the first time during that index operation. So with that, conventionally, we have the pathology team that will take the specimen, and it takes about 1 to 2 weeks to process a specimen. It's a long time, a lot of anxiety for the patient. So the MAGIC scanner will help us get real-time feedback if we have to go in and take out a little bit more. It gives us that real-time feedback that we need to ultimately reduce recurrence rates and improve survival. Now, I had a patient a couple of months ago that had colon cancer, had a recurrence, unfortunately. Recurrence occurred at a spot that was in a difficult location near vital structures. So not only am I dealing with this current recurrence, I also have to make sure that we provide safety first for the patient. So, getting accurate margin status was crucial. Fortunately, we were, and we did it with frozen sections. So that's where we take the biopsy and take it to the pathologist, and they look at it under a microscope and gives us a preliminary result, but it's like picking a weed out of a field of flowers. We're picking the area that's most suspicious. But with this technology, we can get real-time feedback to know if we need to go back and get more, again, during that one operation. So
I
that,
don't know if you have to go back and get one.
so
If the first specimen comes out, it's clear.
if it's clear, we're good. But if that frozen section comes back positive, we often have to core out more tissue. And again, sometimes we won't even know until we send out the specimen to the pathologist. And again, they tell us 1 to 2 weeks later that, hey, well, actually your margins were positive. So that's why this technology would be a great benefit for us as surgeons in the operating room. And ultimately, the bottom line, like President Fentz said, is about the patient. We have to do this for the patient. It will give them a better experience, prolong their lives, and having them to avoid having to go additional treatment and surgeries.
How is this fundamentally different than the use of telescopes?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of similar in a way. So the optics community has learned a lot from astronomy. So when you look into the night sky, you're looking through clouds, and so all the light that's coming from the stars is sort of being scattered and filtered by the clouds. When we look into tissue, we have the same problem. We know light doesn't go through our tissue. So we've learned a lot from that community, and how do we get very clear images of some thick specimen that light doesn't go straight through. And so it's similar to a telescope in that we're seeing small things far away, right? So we're seeing like these individual cells of this piece of meat, whereas a telescope we're trying to see stars that are very far away. But they're a lot bigger. The telescopes are a lot bigger.
Please.
Why did you choose oncology?
I think it takes a special person to care for patients, because as a surgeon, it's actually more than just operating. I feel like I'm the social worker. I'm the I do a lot more than just cancer care. And with having that patience to sit there, so my cancer appointments take about 30 minutes to sit down and do some mental counseling. I had a patient today in clinic that had just really bad anxiety. So the first 15 minutes of the appointment, I had to address the anxiety first so that he could process his personal health. So I realized that at some point during my career that this is what I need to do to make an impact. So that's why I went into it.
The reason I started the Moonshot years ago and came up with this new technology, not technology, but the ARPITH, is that I literally traveled around the world, every major cancer research facility in the world, from Australia to Ireland to Turkey, all across the world. And what I learned was docs don't share information. Everybody walked by a mirror looking in the mirror as if they were the next Nobel Prize to be won. I'm serious. Shameful. Shameful, the failure to share data and information. Even when the law required, when we gave money for that they have to share and write reports. And so, is that attitude changing?
We take an oath, and we're supposed to. I would have to hope that that attitude is changing. I think definitely, so I'm also Vice Chair of Surgical Education for the Department of Surgery. So we're doing more than just teaching, how to cut. We have a lot of mental health resources for our residents. We go over a lot of the ethical issues, especially when we're talking about our cases each week during our morbidity and mortality conference. And hopefully we're leading by example now. So it's about setting a precedent.
What's your gut tell you? Because I tell you, 20 years ago, there was virtually no sharing, and the law required it.
Well, the NIH is, the government has really stepped this up in the past several years.
Yeah,
Right?
they have.
Yeah, right, in terms of like making the data available. President Fisk can tell you about this, in Tulane, it's like we have to make our data available. And so that's the thing we have to do, and that's great. And so I think, this is taxpayer money that pays for this data, right? And so, especially in this new age with artificial intelligence and machine learning, the data is what drives it all. And so we actually have a different project that's related to pathology. We're trying to democratize, I'm not trying to do a pitch, but we're trying to democratize access to this type of imaging where we can get more data from non-elite places, right? So we want to get data from Houma, Louisiana, and Columbia, Louisiana, where I grew up, not just the coast, right? And so we need to share that data. And so I think it's changing. I think a lot of it's because the government has told us to. That's great. But I think ARPA-H is
billions of dollars.
Right. And I think ARPA-H, this model is great because it's, in this particular program, there's multiple teams and it's positive competition, right? So we're going to work together and...
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's really exciting what you're doing. Thank you. Thank you for doing
Thank you.
this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just do a commercial for them? They don't want to say it themselves, but these are people across 3 different schools and numerous universities, and it's exactly the type of collaboration you were talking about that leads to big outcomes like this, and that was the whole point of ARPA-H. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to Welcome. What a great day. It is my great pleasure to welcome everyone to this historic day at Tulane University. I'm especially honored to welcome President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden, whose daughter Ashley is a Tulane graduate, back to campus. Today is an extraordinary opportunity to showcase how Tulane and our nation's research universities are supporting the Biden Cancer Moonshot goal of ending cancer. Tulane professors Quincy Brown and Brian Suma, co-leaders in the ARPA-H funded project that will be announced today, are taking cancer research to a new level. Thanks to their pioneering work, cancer patients undergoing surgery will know within minutes whether all cancer has been removed from the tumor site, avoiding repeat surgeries. This advance will save countless lives. Mr. President and Dr. Biden, together, you've been relentless champions in the battle to end cancer. Through your creation of ARPA-H, you have inspired and empowered the research community to take risks that can produce transformative changes in cancer research and care. Today, we are celebrating some of the results of your tireless commitment. Please join me in welcoming President Joe Biden, First Lady Jill Biden, and Tulane's Dr. Quincy Brown.
Please sit. President Fitz, thank you for welcoming us to your beautiful campus today. And I heard it was freshman orientation on top of all this. So Joe and I are so familiar with that first day here in New Orleans, where the heat sort of just hits you in the face. But that's okay. And I want to thank the press for being here, because without your being here, you give people hope, because they're going to hear about the amazing things that they're doing here at Tulane. And that will give people at home, people that read the newspapers online, that will give them hope. So thank you for being here. You know, it's great to be back in New Orleans, where scientists and researchers are at the forefront in this fight against cancer. And whenever I meet with cancer researchers and scientists, one thing always stands out. It's their relentless optimism. They hear words like never and think, maybe not yet, but one day soon. As president, Joe has invested in that resolve, because that's what turns into the miracle that patients and their families are praying for. Of all the things that cancer steals from us, strength, mobility, comfort, time is the cruelest. For every night spent in the hospital, there's a lost chance to learn maybe the key ingredient in a secret family recipe. For every repeat operation to cut out more cancerous tissue, there's a missed moment to show our kids how to bait a fishing hook on a hot summer day by the lake. Patients and their families don't have time to spare. Joe created ARPA-H, the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health, to invest in the most innovative research that the government wasn't funding before. And it was too risky for the private sector, but could be life-changing and life-saving. And ARPA-H doesn't just fund those projects. It puts them on this fast track to reach patients, answering hopeful prayers and delivering more of that precious gift of time. Cancer touches us all. When Joe and I lost our son to brain cancer, we decided to turn our pain into purpose. We wanted to help families like ours so that they won't have to experience this terrible loss. And as president, Joe has brought his own relentless optimism to the Biden cancer moonshot, to end cancer as we know it. It's ambitious, but it's also within our reach. Maybe not yet, but one day soon, very soon, because of the people in this room, including Dr. Quincy Brown. Dr. Quincy Brown has taken the question, what if surgeries were performed flawlessly the first time? And he's answering it with cutting-edge solutions that reclaim time and reignite hope for patients and their families. So I give you Dr. Brown.
Thank you all. Mr. President, Dr. Biden, distinguished guests, colleagues, friends, and family. On behalf of our research team, I would like to personally extend my sincerest gratitude for your presence here today. It is one of the greatest honors of my life to be asked to stand before you. Today, we are embarking on a new project as part of the ARPA-H Precision Surgical Interventions Program, along with several amazing teams from around the country. Together, we will be tirelessly working to transform cancer surgery as we know it for every American. Many of us know, either personally or through a friend or family member, the fear and anxiety that precedes a cancer surgery, wondering, will the surgeon be able to remove all the tumor? It's a hard job, one which is made harder by the fact that there are no good technologies that can help them to determine during the surgery whether it's been successful, but rather days later, when it is too late to change the surgery. This often means that patients have to come back for another surgery or harmful procedure, and extends the chance and the worry that their cancer will come back. Cancer is hard enough. We should at least be able to give surgeons and patients the peace of mind and positive health benefits of a successful surgery every time. That is the goal our team is working toward, and the one that has motivated much of my career efforts for the past 18 years. Mr. President, 8 years ago, just across town at the Convention Center, I was in the audience at the annual American Association for Cancer Research meeting when you gave an inspiring speech soon after the announcement of your cancer moonshot. So I'm a lifelong space geek, and so I love the idea of a moonshot for cancer. In that speech, you talked to medical doctors, scientists, and engineers involved in the fight against cancer. You talked about the need to realign the incentives for how we approach this fight, about how we should be working together, not against one another. That's why your creation of ARPA-H is so significant. The model of ARPA-H is to give researchers an impossible task and to make them imagine the possible by putting together teams from academia, industry, regulatory science, human-centered design, and government, and then giving them the resources to succeed in areas where progress has stalled. I was born in a small farming community in North Louisiana, Columbia, Louisiana. I am so impressed that the mission of ARPA-H is to develop life-saving technologies that can work in rural or community settings and baking that into the process for every American. Not only in this program do we have to develop amazing new technology, we have to deploy it in 2 rural hospitals at the end of the project, at the end of 5 years. So we can't build $1 million device. This hits me close to home, and it inspires our team to keep the pedal to the metal. Mr. President, Dr. Biden, I want to thank you both for doing what you said you would do, for your commitment for fighting against cancer, and for making this amazing program possible so that every American can hopefully not have to worry about whether their cancer was successfully removed. Thank you. Now, it is my great honor to introduce to you the President of the United States of America, Mr. Joseph R. Biden.
Thank you, please. Thank you. Thank you. Please. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Brown, for the generous introduction and your incredible cancer research you're doing. And thank you, Congressman Carter, who couldn't be here today because his wife is getting promoted to Major General in the United States Army. I pinned down those 2 stars in the Air Force One. she's now going to another major event. You know, the fact is that they're an incredible family, as all of you are. It's great to have so many of my old friends. Cedric Richmond, who has been my buddy for a long time. When Cedric tells you something he doesn't, knows how to do it, and he's a loyal friend, and I appreciate Cedric. Only thing I like better than Cedric, he has a son named Cedric. You should see this kid. He's going to be president. Mitch Lander, another key member of my team, and former Senator Mary Lander. Mary, God love you. Great to see you. And John Breaux, a former colleague of mine and a guy who, whenever he said he'd do it, he got it done. There's John. Along with former Governor John Bell Edwards. Members of my White House team, Director, Office of Management and Budget, Shalonda Young is a Louisiana girl, and she runs the show my way. She controls all the money. She secured funding for everything we're doing. And I have a Director of Science and Technology, Arthi. Where are you, Arthi? There you are. She's smart as hell. As well as Renee, who leads the ARPA-H and transformative work we're doing here and going to talk about today. And Danielle, who leads our Danielle, where are you? Danielle, she leads our Cancer Moonshot. She was with me when I launched the Moonshot when I was Vice President of the United States. I made the case to President at that time, I was Vice President, President Obama, and I convinced him to give me the authority to set up this Cancer Moonshot, which he did completely, and I had the run of the administration to do whatever I needed to do. But I wanted to also thank President Fitz for welcoming us back. I knew when he was up at Penn, on the other side of the ledger, law. He was the dean of the law school. It's an honor to be back at Tulane without having to pay tuition, by the way. You all think I'm kidding. Every time a kid or a child or grandchild graduates, it's a pay raise, man. Our daughter Ashley graduated from Tulane here in 2003 and had a great experience, and now she's working in Philadelphia as a social worker, working with abused women. Folks, it's fair to say one of the most devastating words anyone can hear, and it's not hyperbole, is cancer. You walk into a doc's office with your child and or yourself, and you get a diagnosis of cancer. How many of you heard that when you walked in? It's frightening. It's frightening. But I'm convinced, and I've been convinced, my neurosurgeon, when I had a couple cranial aneurysms that I had to take care of, 9-hour operations, he said to me, trying to explain to me whether aneurysms are congenital or environmental. And I said, I don't care, just get it done. And he looked at me and said, you know what your problem is? I was a senator. And he said, you're a congenital optimist. And I am. I'm a congenital optimist about what America can do. In 2016, President Obama gave me the authority to start this Cancer Moonshot. To that end, I traveled the country and the world, going to every major cancer research center in the world, from Australia to Ireland, visiting the world's top cancer institutes. In fact, Joel and I came to New Orleans for a cancer roundtable with your nurses, social workers, and caregivers and researchers. And what amazed me when I visited a foreign country and spoke to heads of state about coming, they didn't just talk about it, John. After it said, what did you learn? They want to know about cancer. Everybody does. They asked me whether this moonshot would work. So one of the biggest things I found out is that there wasn't a lot of information sharing going on. As we traveled all through the world, I'd find that in one area they'd show me they had this research. I said, but have you shared it? No. They were not sharing the information, even though funding from the federal government when given required sharing, but it wasn't happening. Too many docs walked by that mirror and looked in and saw a Nobel Prize about to be won. I'm not kidding. It really angered me. Scientists weren't sharing the results of other scientists. That's one of the first things we tried to do, is break down the silos so the information was available to everybody. When we were out of office, I knew there was a lot to do, but so we stay engaged. So when I decided to run for president in 2020, I was determined to set up something called ARPA-H. Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health. The idea is, as the elected officials here know, it's not new. There's an outfit called DARPA, Defense Department's Advanced Research Projects Agency, that drove breakthroughs in everything from the internet to GPS and so much more, because that's all it focused on, all it focused on. I wanted something that did nothing but focus on cancer. ARPA-H does for biomedicine what DARPA does for technology, driving breakthroughs to prevent, detect, and treat diseases including cancer, Alzheimer's, and diabetes, and so much more. When Jill and I reignited the cancer moonshot in our administration, we were determined to launch this new outfit called ARPA-H, and that's what we did. Imagine using mRNA vaccines to kill cancer cells. Imagine tackling exactly how a tumor changes over time so doctors can adapt treatments and stay ahead of the cancer as it changes. Imagine applying artificial intelligence to identify existing drugs that can target scientific mutations in rare cancers. Imagine clinical trials that bring innovation to all communities. The nationwide data system allows us to learn from the experience of more patients and more docs around the world and here in the United States. And it breaks down the research silos. This is not a thing we want to keep information, we want to share it. All of these are being pushed through by ARPA-H, which has so far committed more than $400 million to ending cancer as we know it. And a year ago, ARPA-H set its sights on a big idea, calling on researchers and innovators to pioneer new techniques and technologies to make cancer removal more precise, accurate, and successful. Imagine cancer surgery that removes all the tumor the first time without harming healthy cells. Compare that to today. As all of you know, cancer surgery is an incredibly challenging procedure. It takes the best surgeons in the world, and it takes its toll on families. As Jill said, it steals time. It steals away hope. Our family knows the feeling as many of yours do. The surgery happens, then you have to wait a week or more to see if the tumor was removed fully. That anxiety waiting and the unknown is just excruciating. But today, we're a step closer to relieving that burden on patients and families. Today, we're announcing $150 million ARPA-H funding for some of the nation's cutting-edge cancer research institutions. That includes right here at Tulane University. We just met with one of your research teams and we saw 3D views of tumors. It's incredible. It's a roadmap doctors can follow during surgery, unlike anything they've seen before. And right now, surgeons determine how to remove cancerous cells and protect vital organs, nerves, and blood vessels without a clear view of them. A lot of it's a little bit of really educated guesswork, but not positive. The funding we announced today will help get these tools into the operating room to visualize tumors right away instead of having to wait for days and weeks and maybe reopen the patient to go back in. It's a promising step to reduce the need for follow-up surgeries and improve treatments. Outcomes are better will be better all across the board. And we're moving quickly because we know all families touched by cancers are in a race against time. It's all part of our goal of our cancer moonshot to end cancer as we know it and even cure some cancers. We're mobilizing the whole of country effort to cut American cancer deaths in half by 2020 and within 25 years and boost support for patients and their families. I'm confident in our capacity to do that. I know we can, but it's not just personal. It's about what's possible. This is on top of the administration investing more than $25 billion. I've been able to get money, $25 billion for the National Cancer Institute. That's an increase of more than $4 billion in just 4 years. That investment is supporting everything from next-generation cancer science innovations to cutting-edge research in cancer disparities and new efforts on childhood cancers. We're also focused on helping fence-line communities facing disproportionate cancer rates. In some areas facing 15 to 20% higher rates like Cancer Alley here in Louisiana, or equally as dangerous, Route 9 in the state of Delaware. We had the highest cancer rate in any state in the nation until 2010. There's so much we're doing. It matters. It matters a lot. What matters most is not giving up hope. Let me close with this. You heard me say it over and over. America can be defined by one word. I spent a lot of time with Xi Jinping, and they tape everything we say. I spent over 80 hours with him alone, over 17,000 miles in China. And we were in Tibet, near Tibet. And he asked me, can I define America for him? And this is a true story. I said, yes, in one word, possibilities. We believe anything's possible in America. Anything we set our mind to is possible. We are the land of possibilities. That's who we are. And that's what you're doing here at Tulane. There's still more to do, but we know we can do it. We just have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. We're the United States. There's nothing beyond our capacity when we work together. So it's all about working together and sharing data, sharing information. I'm going to be moving off from here to other places as well to make more of these announcements. But we're on the verge. We're in the beginning to fundamentally change how we deal with this dreaded disease. And before I leave, I want to say when my daughter was here, our daughter was here for 4 years at Tulane. She loved it. And I want to tell you, there was another mayor named Landrieu, not the son at the time. And Mom is with him. Mom, I love you. Mrs. Landrieu is one of the finest women I've ever known in my life. I love you, Mom. Keep me in your prayers. Thank you. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.